Welcome to another episode of the Stampede. I'm your host, Stephen Foster, and this is the Shady Sports Network. Tonight's sponsor is...
The sponsor for this week's episode of the Stampede is Mountain Mud Service and Supply Incorporated. Fully stocked product lines ranging from standard and specialty drilling, mud, and chemical products, production and workover fluids, cementing or float equipment, in-stock and special order pit liners and erosion controls, as well as rental equipment. Utilizing our private fleet gives us the ability to deliver, load, pick up, or drop ship products 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, no matter the load size. With safety and speed as our number one goals, Mountain Mud Service and Supply Incorporated has been operating with no lost time accidents since the ownership changed hands on January 1st, 2006. Call us at 307-682-8688 or visit us at mountainmud.com. That's mtnmud.com. That's 307-682-8688 today.
All right, joining me tonight, the man responsible for all of this, not only responsible for this show, but many shows just like it around the league. He's my producer, Sam Just. Sam, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me once again. I'm looking forward to talking some Mustangs football.
Yes, absolutely. So, Sam, where do you want to start?
Well, first of all, we want to get out there that we're not doing an episode next week because I will be out of the country. So we're previewing the Salina Liberty game this week. So we're kind of looking at the game and what could happen, assuming the Salina Liberty win this upcoming weekend against the Sioux City Bandits.
Yep. And a very important game between those two teams.
Absolutely. But this actually could, assuming, again, the Liberty win against Sioux City, this could be the game that plays out the number 2 seed for the CIF. Got a couple more comments rolling in from Chris. He says Mustangs are so overrated. We will destroy them. That's funny coming from the number 6 seed team's host. So my biggest question coming into this game is, can the Mustangs bounce back from a tough loss? I mean, I don't think anybody expected the Billings Outlaws to go into Gillette and ultimately destroy the Mustangs. And it was one of those things where they got the last second victory, and that was huge for the Outlaws' momentum and huge for slowing down the Mustangs, which have basically been rolling all season long. Steve, you were at the game, correct? I mean, were you surprised by the victory?
Well, I was. I'm not going to say I was surprised. I'm not surprised by any victories in this league, but it was definitely a game that the Mustangs controlled for almost 3 entire quarters. They kind of allowed the Outlaws to stick around, and I think it kind of came. The outlaw run game kind of wore on this Mustang defense late. Also, no Pemberton in the lineup against the Outlaws. I'm not sure if he didn't make the trip or what his status was there, but Garrett in his 5.5 sacks were not a part of the defense for the Mustangs. So just kind of, I think the Mustangs just really kind of just let one slip away late. They controlled the game for nearly 3 quarters.
Absolutely. It was one of those things where they kind of like you said, let it slip through their fingers in crunch time, which we haven't seen much of from the Mustangs. I mean, normally they've been pretty good about keeping their foot on the gas throughout the game, and their defense has been extremely good about taking the ball away. Maybe it's because the increased number of passing attempts against them. I'm not quite sure what it may be, but they've led the league in interceptions at multiple points this year, and currently they have 19 interceptions on the year.
Yeah. That defense is pretty stellar.
Absolutely. Speaking of stellar defenses, the Outlaws kind of surprised me in this past game. I mean, the Mustangs averaged 48 points per game, and they only were able to score 38 points against the Outlaws defense, 10 points under their season average. So I'm kind of curious, do you think this was just a bad game, or do you think the Outlaws kind of provided the blueprint for opponents' success against the Mustangs?
No, I wouldn't go that far. I mean, I would definitely maybe chalk it up more to as a bad game. The Metro Park, the game was actually in Billings at the Metro Park, and the place was very loud. I don't know what the official attendance was there, but it was pretty loud, and I do believe the noise did affect the offense on a couple of occasions, from what I saw. So it definitely played a role. I think it was more of a bad game.
Absolutely, I could definitely see that. So the Mustangs' offensive line has been able to prevent pressure quite a bit, but Travis Taylor currently leads the league in sacks with 10.5 in just 8 games, and he could be leading. He could be adding to this number before the Mustangs actually play him. Do
Yeah.
you think they'll be able to slow down or stop Travis?
I wish them luck. I'm glad I don't have to try and do it.
That's definitely fair for sure. And then another big question is we've got the Mustangs' third ranked run defense versus Tracy Book, who currently leads the league in rushing yards. That's going to be an interesting matchup in my mind. Do you think the Mustangs can contain Tracy?
Again, another tough challenge. He's been on a little streak lately, so that's going to be a tough task. And hopefully, it's a high priority for them.
Absolutely. Chris says Melvin Gordon is about to be the running back one for the Mustangs next year. Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Melvin Gordon go to Nebraska? I'll have to look that up someday. But that's neither here nor there. Maybe we see him in Omaha. Will the Mustangs secondary be able to force veteran Ed Crouch into throwing errant passes and creating turnovers? That's a big question I have going into this next week game. The Mustangs defense, like I said, has thrived on interceptions, 19 on the year. If they're not able to produce those interceptions, I'm curious if the Mustangs can continue to have the success that they've had against really high level teams that they've played. Do you have any thoughts on this?
I think they're going to just, like I said, they're going to have a bounce back game. I'm actually going to be picking them against Salina. I do believe we will pull off the victory. I really think that, I'm going to switch it over to the other side of the ball on offense. Their quarterback is the real deal with the Mustangs and Aaron Aiken. I saw that man get hit and hit again, and he got hit hard in that game against the Outlaws. It was a very tough physical game. And he stood in there and he just kept coming back and kept delivering the ball. I think as he gets settled into that offense more and more, he's going to be really, really good. And then that receiving core that they have is just special. Holy smokes. I think I was looking at the stats today. The Mustangs have, I think, all but one of their receivers has double digits in catches. Every single one of their receivers on their roster has a touchdown. It's just insane. So with Carons Higgins, Anderson, and Cornelius Jr. in that offense, they're the real deal. The Mustangs are the real deal.
100%. It's kind of funny. I personally think you could take this roster, and I guess this is going to be considered a little bit of a hot take, but I think you could take this roster and put them right up against most IFL teams as it stands, and they would hold their own, if not win. I think Aaron Aiken is a great quarterback, and that's no disrespect to Mike Pina for anybody who's watching. I think Mike Pina is also a great quarterback. The Mustangs ran into a situation where they had two really good quarterbacks,
Yep.
and it was in everybody's best case scenario for Pina to move on and get the chance to start somewhere else with Aiken coming in here. But I would also throw out there that I don't necessarily think that the Mustangs coaching staff thought Aiken would ever actually end up here at this point. So I think it was one of those things where they threw up a Hail Mary. He ended up answering that call at some point due to his situation in the IFL, and here we are. Krish says most IFL teams. All right, bud. Yeah, Krish, most IFL teams, I think they would hold their own, if not win. I'm not saying they would necessarily win against every team, but they would hold their own. This offense is very talented.
He did say hot take.
Yeah, absolutely. Aaron Aiken is built like Anthony Richardson, or a better comparison is Steve McNair. I would totally agree. He's a big dude. He's, I believe, 6'5", 240 pounds. He can take a hit. There's a reason why he's got 7 rushing touchdowns in just a couple weeks that he's been with Gillette.
Yeah, like you said, I was at the game, and when he walked out onto the field, we were like, dang, who's that new defensive guy that they got? Holy smokes. Oh, that's the starting quarterback. Oh, wow.
Absolutely. I mean, he's very athletic, so athletic that at times he's played wide receiver in college and in the IFL. So I mean, he's interesting. He's an interesting player. There's a reason why I wrote about him on ShadySportsNetwork.com before. But yeah, I'm kind of curious. One of my big questions heading into this next game is if Aiken and Jalen Jefferson can both top 10 rushing touchdowns. Aiken's got 7 already. Jefferson's got 8. We'll see. It's going to take quite a bit for both of them to do it. Do you see Jefferson topping 10 this season?
Definitely. I definitely see that.
Absolutely. A former guest of the show. We're big fans of him. He's electric. He's an electric running back. Also, I'm kind of curious. This game has a lot of little matchups that are going to be very interesting to watch. You got the Mustangs' second-ranked offense, Liberty third-ranked scoring offense, trailing Gillette by just 0.1 points. I mean, if you want to talk about a split decision type game, I mean, it doesn't get any closer than this. If you had to guess, what would the score look like after this game?
Man, I have no idea. I don't want to jinx anything.
That's completely fair. I do expect it to be a very close game. And Krish, I would agree with that. Jefferson should be outdoors very soon. That man, at the very least, ELF, LFA, one of those. I personally think he's a great player. He could probably play slot receiver outdoors as well if it came to it. He's an electric player, kick returner type as well. Mustangs produced 248.4 yards of offense, best in the league. The Liberty defense also allows 224 yards per game, second most in the league. So that's a very interesting to look at here. This could be another game where we see this Gillette offense, like I said, have kind of an explosion. It'll be up to Haran O'Neal, a defensive player himself, at one point to really game plan up a defensive scheme that can slow them down. Like I said, it's going to be interesting. I don't want to ask you for a prediction again, but do you think that the Mustangs the Mustangs offense will be able to move the ball like they have been in the past?
Yeah, I do. That wide receiver core is special. Like I talked about, they just have a unique way of getting open. And when the first one's not open, the second and the third one is. And the way they're just stacking up receptions is insane. I'd be interested to know if they actually lead the league in total receptions.
It wouldn't surprise me. They've done a lot of throwing this season so far.
Yes.
So on the flip side, we got the Liberty offense, which produces 236.1 yards per game, second best in the league next to Gillette. Led by Mo Strong, Ed Crouch, Tracy Brooks, and also Anthony Love, 2 of the better receivers in the league. Both have 6 touchdowns apiece. Do you think the Gillette's defense is going to be able to perform like they have in past weeks, or do you think they're going to struggle with these receivers in Salina?
You know, they recently released a defensive back, I believe. So they're probably going to have some new guys that they're going to be looking at. So, I mean, if there is probably a weakness on this Mustang team, maybe you look at defensive back position. But I think the guys that we have on roster right now, they're going to step up to the challenge. That game could have huge playoff seeding implications. depending on if Salina can take care of business against Sioux City tonight. I know Outlaw fans are really hoping that Salina gets a victory there. So if they do, this game next week versus Gillette is probably going to be for the 2 seed, right?
Yeah, I personally think it will be. I mean, it all comes down to Sioux City. Really, they're the team that holds everybody's destiny in their hands this week. If they pull out a victory, that changes everything. It solidifies the playoff seeding this week, and then next week is basically, um, you know, it's more or less it's a wash. No matter how things fall, basically the playoff seeding would already be decided at that point.
Yep.
Excuse me. So another one of the things that I'm very interested to look at in this story, I mean, this game, are some of the storylines. I mean, could this game, do you think, turn into a shootout now that we're featuring two quarterbacks who are now entering their third week in a new offense? They're probably at this point a little bit more comfortable, or I guess at this point it'd be fourth week. Sorry, I forgot to account for the Sioux City game for Ed Crouch and then the bye week for Aaron Aiken. So fourth week in the new offense. Do you think that they'll be hitting a new stride given what they've been able to produce so far?
Yeah, as a fan of CIF football, I sure am hoping for a shootout. That's exactly what I want to see. Hopefully it's a shootout that results in a Mustang win, but that's what we want to see. Like you said, I was at the game last week with the Outlaws and the Mustangs, and that was like the first game that I was at that was competitive. All the games that I've been at, going back to last year, have all been like blowouts one way or the other. So it was really nice to see a competitive game. It was really nice to see the crowd interactive in the entire game. So I'm really hoping for a great game as a fan. That's what I want to see.
Absolutely. I would completely agree. And that's the thing. I don't think it was necessarily by design. I think a lot of this is kind of luck of the draw and how things have fallen for the CIF. But I would think that the CIF has to be sitting here looking at the last 2 weeks of their schedule and be extremely happy with how everything's fallen. And again, I know a lot of this falls on Sioux City's hands and how they perform this upcoming week. Um, I mean, this week tonight, how they perform against the Liberty. But uh, I think that you have to be thrilled with how this season has gone, because at this point you still have so many teams still jockeying for position and trying to figure out where they're going to land in the playoffs, that these games still have a tremendous amount of meaning late in the season, which sometimes in an 8-team league where a lot of these teams have faced each other, you get towards the end of the season and some of the playoff seedings already announced or decided, and some of these teams kind of check out. I'm not going to lie, we've all seen it happen. But and then the CIF this season, they've done a tremendous job of avoiding that. And I don't think it's necessarily by design. It's just kind of how it's fallen. But I'm encouraged by it.
For sure. I mean, think of the matchups that we could get next week. If everything plays out, we could have what we're going to have: Sioux City versus Omaha, right? With undefeated season on the line. Yep. And then we could possibly have Gillette and Salina Liberty going head to head for the 2 seed. It's going to be a great weekend of football.
Absolutely. So this game could, as we just decided, or we just spoke about, decide who gets a bye week. I don't even know really which one of these teams really needs that bye week more. I mean, I know the Mustangs have had some injuries. They've gotten some players back recently. That bye week would also help Aaron Aiken get more comfortable in this offense. But he's also only played 3 games in this offense at this point. Do you think he needs to play that game more to keep the momentum up, or do you think he'd be okay with that bye week there?
Well, they're on a bye week right now. So, I mean, I think that this bye week came at a key opportunity, a key time for them to kind of lick their wounds, figure out what happened, how they let that game against Outlaws slip away. It's always nice. I feel like I always want my team. I don't like my team to go undefeated in the regular season going into the playoffs. I like my team to have taken one on the chin. I want them to know what it's like to lose. So I think that's how the Mustangs are going to react. I think that they have a great coaching staff, a great team. So they're going to bounce back. They're going to, I don't think they necessarily, I think they want that bye for sure. I think every team would want that bye, an extra week to prepare. My goodness.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's hard to argue that point. I mean, obviously, if you look at it, they're going to have another week to prepare for whatever opponent. They're going to get to sit back and watch the game and see the weaknesses, see how the game goes, see what the other team does in a playoff setting. So you know what you're going to get the following week. So that's actually a really huge advantage in this particular case, I think.
Yeah, for sure. So I think all teams are going to be playing very hard for that 2 spot. It's going to be exciting to see.
Absolutely. So I got one more not necessarily hot take, but I guess a question that I think could ruffle some feathers. But do you think that Tracy Brooks could potentially see 600 rushing yards this season? He's currently at 432 with 2 games remaining. He would need 168 yards to do it.
Just 168 total yards in 2 games?
Yeah.
Oh, it's going to be close. Oh, yeah. I bet he gets that.
It'll be very interesting to see. He's an incredible player. I'm not quite sure why he hasn't gotten more of a look outdoors in terms of like a USFL team or even another IFL team, which I know, once we see the CIF season end, we'll probably see some of these guys signed, which we'll get into here in a short second. But will Kerance Higgins, do you think, top 700 yards and 15 touchdowns on the season? He's currently only 82 yards and 1 touchdown away, but has just 1 game remaining.
Yeah. He's a vital part of this offense. He easily gets that.
Absolutely. So obviously, I didn't necessarily have you prepare for this, so I don't expect you to have a huge list for me, but looking back at some of the guests that we've had on this channel, we know that every year after the CIF season ends, we see a little bit of a rush on IFL teams picking up CIF players to kind of like close out their season for the playoff run. Do you see this Gillette Mustangs team kind of getting picked apart by IFL teams?
Yeah. Yep.
Are there any players that stick out in particular to you?
Kerance Higgins for one. I bet if Aiken goes on a good playoff run, they're gonna be looking at him again. Gosh, there's so many. Pick any one of those wide receivers. There's going to be a few players that definitely get approached by the NFL.
Yeah, I would agree. And the defenders too. I mean, you look at Nolan Burnett, I think it's McFarland. I apologize if I'm forgetting the name. So many leagues that we cover here, it's hard to remember everybody. But definitely very intrigued to see exactly how these teams shake out, because I think there's a lot of talent on not only Gillette but Salina as well. I could see a lot of these players finishing out the season with the IFL. In fact, I know that a Rapid City Marshals coach recently floated out the idea of playing again. So it'll be interesting to see if he returns for an IFL stint in the playoffs as well.
I did see that. Best of luck to him. That'd be awesome to see that. If that happened.
Absolutely. He did it last season, and he did get to play in the IFL championship game with Quad City. Unfortunately, they did not win. As we all know, the Naz Wrangler won. But at the end of the day, he was there, and then he got to bring that experience with him to be a coach, although it hasn't really translated for the Marshals so far. Any final points before we get out of here for the day?
Nope. Enjoy this week off. Beat the brakes off Salina.
Absolutely. Let's go Mustangs.
Go Mustangs.